Hello and welcome to Sunday worship at home because we're all at home because not only are we locked down, but we have received a heartfelt request from Brent Council saying please close, not just specifically for St Catherine's but to all places of worship in Brent, saying I know you're allowed to stay open and you can stay open if you insist, but we would really very much like it if you closed. And we've heard that and of course are responding to it because we all need to look after each other and ourselves, and this new variant is easy to catch, and if you get this disease it can turn out really difficult. So let's all do our best, and here we are worshipping at home from home, but God is with us wherever we are. This whole COVID thing is, well, it's been quite a journey really. And a year ago, we had no idea it was coming our way, which is why for this month I've chosen for our theme, Unexpected Journeys, because there are lots of people in the Bible who go on unexpected journeys. Sometimes they're lovely unexpected journeys, sometimes they're awful unexpected journeys, but on every occasion, God is there and he plays his part. So today we're going to look at the unexpected journey that Joseph, not Jesus' dad Joseph, but Joseph of old, Joseph the son of Jacob, the unexpected journey that Joseph went on and that led out to be an unexpected journey for the whole of his family. Well, you probably know already, we could all sing the songs together, but it's copyrighted and we can't do it and then post it on YouTube. So join me for our opening prayer and we'll unfold the story as we go. And so to our reading, which today comes from Genesis chapter 37, and then jumping over chapter 38 and having a little bit from chapter 39 as well, the story of Joseph. This is the story so far. Jacob, also known as Israel, just to keep us on our toes, had 12 sons. Joseph was son number 11, 12 sons from 4 different women. And Joseph was absolutely the favourite son because his mum was absolutely the favourite wife. And this caused insane jealousy amongst his brothers, literally insane jealousy, in fact, murderous jealousy amongst his brothers. Dad sends his favourite son, Joseph, off to find the not-so-favourite elder brothers, all 10 of them, and to deliver a message to them. And when they see him coming and there's no one else around, well, this is what happens. Joseph went after his brothers and found them at Dothan, and they saw him from a distance, and before he came near to them, they conspired to kill him. They said to one another, "Here comes this dreamer. Come now, let's kill him and throw him into one of the pits, and then we shall say that a wild animal has devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams." But when Reuben, who was the eldest, when Reuben heard it, he delivered him out of their hands, saying, "Let us not take his life." Reuben said to them, "Shed no blood, throw him into the pit here in the wilderness, but lay no hand on him, that he might rescue him out of their hand and restore him to his father." So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the long robe with sleeves that he wore, and they took him and threw him into a pit. The pit was empty with no water in it. Then they sat down to eat, and looking up they saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead with their camels carrying gum, balm and resin on their way to carry it down to Egypt. And then Judah said to his brothers, "What profit is there if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites. We'll not lay our hands on him, for he's our brother, our own flesh." And his brothers agreed. And when some Midianite traders passed by, they drew Joseph up, lifted him out of the pit, and they sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. They took Joseph to Egypt. Then we skip over a chapter and pick up the story. Now, Joseph was taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard, an Egyptian, brought him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him down there. And the Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man, and he was in the house of his Egyptian master. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord caused all that he did to prosper in his hands. So Joseph found favor in his sight and attended to him. And he made him overseer of his house and put him in charge of all that he had. From the time that he had made him overseer in his house over all that he had, the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake.
I've brought you out to the Harrison Rubbish Centre for this. As most of us have, we have the general rubbish bin which goes into a landfill site. We have the recycling, and we have the green bin there. And each of us have this, and this is what we do with our rubbish. Well, the reason I've come out here is because Joseph's experience was rubbish. It was rubbish. It was absolute rubbish that his brothers should conspire to kill him and then decide, no, we've got something better to do than kill him. Let's sell him. And he who had set off with his, his posh frock, which his dad had made for him, to deliver a bit of family business, finds himself naked and a slave and being carried off to a foreign country to be sold. That's rubbish. You can't get much more rubbish than that. But while Joseph is having an absolute rubbish time, God is working the work of God. God hasn't abandoned him. I bet Joseph felt that God had abandoned him. I bet that his prayers at that time were, God, rescue me, take me back. But God had a different plan. God wasn't going to take him back. God was going to travel with him, and he was going to turn this rubbish experience around into something that would save not only his life, but the lives of his family. This bin, that just goes on a landfill site. That rubbish is just rubbish, and it's completely useless. This bin, it gets recycled. It gets made into something else. So this cardboard will probably be toilet paper or something like that. But this is going to have a new life. But it's this bin which is the one which I'm most interested in, because this becomes a fertile growing medium for growing fruit and flowers and vegetables and good stuff. And that's what God is like. God takes our rubbish and he grows stuff in it. God grows even more wonderful things out of our rubbish. We go on an unexpected journey. We go on a rubbish journey. But while we're having a rubbish time, God is planning something wonderful. And I think that applies to this whole COVID business as well. We're having a rubbish time, not just us in Leesden, across the world we're having a rubbish time. But God is a God who grows stuff in our rubbish. And we can trust God. He won't take us back to where we were, because he's got better plans for that. God can do better things with our rubbish than just restore it. And I have no doubt, if, like Joseph, we travel with God and we trust God, that he will grow wonderful stuff in our rubbish.
And on towards our second reading. So Joseph ends up being bought by Potiphar. He's a household slave, but what can he do? The only thing he can do is to do his best, to work as hard as he can, to serve his master as well as he can, and to be as honest as he can. And that is what he does. God does the rest. God blesses it. I'm sure that if Joseph hadn't done his best and been honest and diligent, then probably the story would have ended differently. But Joseph did do his best and God blessed him. That said, poor guy, had another unexpected journey to prison. It all went horribly. It had already gone horribly wrong, but it went horribly even more wrong. And Joseph ended up falsely accused of raping his master's wife and ends up in prison. Can it get any worse? More rubbish, but rubbish which God also has a plan for, because what God is about to grow out of this rubbish is Joseph becoming prime minister. And Joseph leading Egypt through an awful region-wide famine so that Egypt survives the famine and all the other countries in the area don't. And that then brings his family, his brothers, down, because Egypt's the only place that's got food. This is years later, and Joseph is now prime minister. His brothers come down, and he's got food for them. He recognizes him. They don't recognize. He recognizes them. They don't recognize him because he's Egyptian now. He's wearing a wig and all that stuff that Egyptians wore. No wonder they didn't recognize him. And, well, cut a long story short, eventually this happens. Remember that Israel is the alternative name of Joseph's father, Jacob. When Israel set out on his journey with all that he had, he came to Beersheba and he offered sacrifices to God, to the God of his father Isaac. God spoke to Israel in visions of the night and said, "Jacob, Jacob." And he said, "Here I am." And God said, "I am God, the God of your father. Don't be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I will make you a great nation there. I myself will go down with you to Egypt, and I will also bring you up again. And Joseph's own hand shall close your eyes." Then Jacob set out from Beersheba, and the sons of Israel carried their father and their little ones and their wives in the wagons that Pharaoh had sent to carry him. And they also took their livestock and the goods that they had acquired in the land of Canaan, and they came to Egypt. And Jacob and all his offspring with him, his sons and his sons' sons with him, his daughters and his sons' daughters, all his offspring he brought with him into Egypt. And Israel sent Judah ahead to Joseph to lead the way before him to Goshen. And when they came to the land of Goshen, Joseph made ready his chariot, and he went up to meet his father Israel in Goshen. And he presented himself to him and fell on his neck and wept on his neck a good while. And Israel said to Joseph, "I can die now, having seen for myself that you are still alive." Joseph's brothers had done an absolutely awful thing, and yet God, out of that awful thing, brought about something that was wonderful. That doesn't justify the awful thing that they did, and we will never know what might have happened if they hadn't done such an awful thing. And life is like that. We create rubbish in our lives, and God does amazing things with that rubbish. That doesn't justify our rubbish in the first place. It just shows us how wonderful God is. I'm outside again because this second unexpected journey is an interesting one. God had promised Abraham that his descendants would live in the land of Canaan. That was a promise from God. That promise was passed from Abraham to his son Isaac. It was passed from Isaac to his son Jacob. And surely that promise was going to be good for Jacob and his son Joseph and his other sons. So God had promised them Canaan, but yet they were traveling to Egypt.
And I wonder if they'd been religious in those days, which they weren't in the way that we are, there would have been lots of people saying, oh, we can't go to Egypt because God's promised us Canaan. We must stay in Canaan because God has promised us Canaan. But actually, no, God was taking them on a much more unexpected journey than that, which is why I'm standing here. I'm standing in my front drive, and the church is over there. If I go in that direction in a straight line, if I flew, I would get to the church. If I want to drive to the church in this scruffy old car, then I can't go that way. Well, I have to drive through my neighbour's house. I can't even go that way up the road because there's a bridge in the way. So if I want to drive to church, I have to go that way, in totally the opposite direction. And when I've gone that way a bit, then I have to turn that way and go even more in the opposite direction down towards IKEA and Tesco's. And then I have to go along Dog Lane, which isn't exactly in the right direction. And that leads me up to the Neason roundabout. When I get to the Neason roundabout, I can see the church, but I can't drive straight to it because the Grange is in the way. So once again, I've got to turn off in the wrong direction and go round the roundabout. God was taking his people on a very roundabout journey. He was taking them absolutely in the opposite direction from his own promise to them. And this was a roundabout journey that was going to take centuries to resolve itself. That's what we're dealing with when we're dealing with God. We can't expect God to take us in a straight line. Even if he's promised to take us somewhere, it doesn't mean he'll take us there in a straight line. Even if he's promised to take us somewhere, it doesn't mean that we will get there quickly. Even if he's promised to take us somewhere, it doesn't mean we'll get there in our own lifetimes. That is the nature of God, the nature of life, the nature of what we are dealing with and living with and praying with. And all we can do is take the journey that is before us. It may not be what we're expecting, but if we go, if we trust, if we're diligent, if we're obedient, sooner or later we will end up in the right place.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everyone is well. Now let us come together and say the prayer that Jesus taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, for ever and ever. Amen.
That just about brings us to the end of our at-home Sunday worship today, the first Sunday of lockdown 3, or the first lockdown of 2021. May it be the last lockdown of 2021. At this juncture, I raise a glass to toast God. And I think that's a good thing to do, and I encourage you to join me in it, because worship isn't just about words and heads and thoughts. I think worship needs to be about bodies and actions as well. After all, these body things are what we live out our faith using. Today, I'm going trad, and I'm going to toast God with a glass of red wine. I'm not toasting God with a glass of red wine because it's a community thing. I'm toasting God with a glass of red wine because of the journey that the contents of this bottle has been on, the unexpected journey. When a grapevine in Italy put forth those berries, those grapes, if its intention, if grapevines can think, I don't know whether they can, but its intention was that those berries, those grapes, would be pecked off the vine by birds and taken on a journey up into the trees, where the birds would eat the grapes, and then the little seeds in the grapes would go on another journey through the digestive tract of the bird, and, well, you know the rest. Produce other little grapevines in other places, but that's not the journey that the contents of this bottle went on. Those grapes were picked and they were put in a lorry and they were taken to a, whatever you call a place where you make wine, and they were crushed, they were squashed, they were obliterated. They must have felt, if grapes had feeling, rather like Joseph felt when he was put into prison. And then they were put into a barrel and left to stew for a long time, as was Joseph in a prison. And eventually, after many months, something wonderful came out. This is what God does to us. We are those grapes that get squidged, that get squashed, that get taken to places that we don't expect. But God is a God who transforms our suffering into something wonderful. To our wonderful Heavenly Father, who is with us when we go on unexpected journeys. May God bless you and keep you. May he make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May he look kindly on you and give you peace today and every day. May God bless you.